One of the great things about role-playing games is that we get to use our imagination to pretend that we are some other fantastical race if we choose to be. Whether it's a dwarf, an elf, or something like that in a fantasy setting, or whether it's some kind of weird space alien in a science fiction game. The bottom line is, we the players are all humans, and sometimes we make mistakes. That's the topic for today's DnDaily vlog. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Gregory, this is 1 in 20 D&D, and welcome to DnDaily number 261. On the vlog today, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of mistakes that you and I might make as players. And basically, for the sake of today's vlog, we're going to limit it to two things that might happen. And basically, you can break it down to something you might make a mistake as mechanically in the game, and something you might make as a mistake of interpretation or understanding of what's happening in the game. Regardless of which one you make, I'm going to share at the end of this a really fun way to take that, turn it into something really useful for you as a player and for your character. So let's get started by talking first about mechanical mistakes. Mechanical mistakes are really easy ones. You know, these are the things where you either add up your dice incorrectly and maybe you say, oh, I did 35 damage and when it was actually supposed to be 30 damage or something like that. Or perhaps you misinterpreted one of your skills or spells, or even more simply, you forgot that you were raging, something like this. And these are really simply handled during the game. Very quickly, you just, bring it up to the DM and let the DM decide how they want to deal with it. Sometimes they're going to say, oh, sure, and they'll either subtract or add the little bit of extra or less damage. That's an easy fix. Sometimes they'll say, well, okay, thanks for bringing it to my attention. We'll remember that going forward. And that's ultimately what we want to do as players, is remember those things so that we don't keep repeating them from game to game, from session to session, right? So obviously, we want to learn from those mistakes that we made. The mechanical ones are definitely the easier ones to deal with. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up today was because I was listening to the game from Wednesday, our Dragon of Icespire Peak game, and I like to review the game after we've played it because it helps me to remember things that happened in the session. It also helps me to catch anything I might have missed during the session, and it helps me to make sure that I'm being as consistent as I possibly can with the choices that I'm making for my character. And one of the things that's been playing out in this game, there's sort of an arc that's happened, is a few sessions back, we saved a half-orc that crossed our path, and we had, in my character's mind, we had accidentally taken this NPC, this opponent, or whatever you want to call it, this individual, and killed them hastily, and she thought in error. However, fast forward a few sessions and it turns out that, well, in fact, this character was actually, this NPC was a bad guy in the end, and well, let's see how that plays out. So I, as Gregory, made an interpretation based on what was presented to me in the game. That interpretation turned out to be wrong, and that's okay, because what happened from that is it created a great situation for some role playing, for some really fun role playing. Now, you also get to see how this character is not perfect. And I think that's ultimately really fun in a game. You know, one of the things that we want is we want to have these heroic characters. That's really fun. The thing about that is it can get very bland at the same time. If our characters are too perfect and never make any mistakes, they succeed at everything, that's boring, it's not realistic, and quite frankly, it's uninteresting. Even our superheroes, even the characters from our myths, they had flaws, they made mistakes. They were not perfect, in spite of them being gods or what have you, superheroes. And that's what made them interesting, and that's what made them relatable. The fact that they did make mistakes. So I want to encourage you, in concluding, kind of tying this video back to what I said at the beginning where I would share a trick or tip. This is my tip and trick. I want you to use the mistakes. Whether you make them mechanically, mixing up dice and numbers, or whether you make them like I did, you misinterpret some situation in a game. My character Loom thought that an NPC was perhaps innocent and we should save them, and we did, and that backfired and turned out that no, this NPC was actually evil and doing something really dark and sinister. Well, now I have information that I can move my character forward. I can add to the story, because now, even though I, Gregory, made a mistake, and that means my character made a mistake, now what does that mean? How is that going to affect my character moving forward? How is it going to change her relationship with herself or her relationship with the other characters? Is it going to change the way she sees the world, and so on? That's interesting. That's good storytelling. That's why making mistakes as a player or as a character are gold. You can use them in your game to create some really incredible stories. Remember, this is 1 in 20 D&D. I celebrate the 1s and the 20s. You don't have to roll a 1 to fail at something. You don't have to roll a 1 to make a mistake as a character, but you can use them. Those mechanical failures are great. Those mechanical mistakes are great. And we're not perfect. We're humans. We do make mistakes in the way we see the game, the way we understand how things work. And that's okay too. And it can turn into lots of fun. I hope you keep rolling 20s until I see you at a table someday. But in the meantime, remember this: it's your game. Play your way.